fact. We have to end this now. A staunch fiscal conservative is going to bring New York State back, not the past. We have to look toward the future. And that's all I'm going to say today. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Terry Gipson.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here today, and thanks, Charlie, for putting this together, and to your staff that must have worked so hard to put this together. I really do appreciate it. And I just want to thank all of you. You worked so hard to stimulate and drive our economy here in the Hudson Valley, and we really need you to get out there and keep doing that, and I'm behind you all the way. Now, as I look around the room here, I see a lot of small business owners. And I just want to ask you a quick question. How many of you have your own personal lobbyist in Albany? Well, you need one. And that's exactly what I want. Okay, well, you got me. Everyone except for Charlie. That's what I want to do for you. I want to go to Albany and lobby the state government for you. And I'm qualified to do that because I am one of you. I am a small business owner. I'm in the trenches every single day trying to survive just like you. And I understand that when Albany asked you to pay MTA payroll tax, it was the worst idea they have ever had. And I do want to thank Senator Saland sincerely for the work that he has done in helping repeal that. And when I go to Albany, you can count on me to repeal what's left of it, and I'm going to insist that you get a refund. But I am just getting started. What we really need are creative solutions. And you're in luck, because I spent the last 20 years in my career providing creative solutions to very complex problems. For instance, if you want to reduce the cost of living, you've got to change the way we fund education so that it's fair to students and it's fair to homeowners. You want to create jobs here in the Hudson Valley? Well, let's start a jobs bank where small businesses can get no interest loans to pay the first 20% of their employee's salary for the first 3 years just to help get them started. You want to create even more jobs? Well, let's bring renewable energy here to the Hudson Valley, and let's use it to put research and development firms in all of our empty office buildings, and take our empty industrial sites and fill it with manufacturing and solar and wind and geothermal and hydrokinetic power. Now, it just so happens that the governor wants to do many of these same things, and I'm happy to go there and work with him and cooperate with him to get them done. But more importantly, I want to work with you. Together, working together, we will build a New York that is stronger and smarter and healthier than it has ever been. And I am so ready to get started. Thank you.
Just clarify one thing, I do not have a personal lobbyist in Albany. I am your lobbyist. That's what I do. I represent the business community and the not-for-profits that are members of our great chamber. And now, please welcome Steve Saland.
Morning, Charlie. Thank you. Thanks to the Chamber. Thanks to all of you for turning out this morning. Let me start off by saying I certainly know a substantial number of you. I've worked with a substantial number of you. I've assisted you on more than one occasion, and look forward to continuing to be able to be your voice in Albany. I come from a small business background. My father was a small businessman. I drove trucks for my father. He never employed any more than about a dozen people, and sometimes as few as 3. I was a single practitioner for much of my professional career as a lawyer. I'm from this community. I've lived in this community nearly all my life. I attended public schools right here in the city of Poughkeepsie. I raised my family right here in this county. This county is something that I love and cherish dearly. It's been good to me, it's been good to my family, and I want to continue to add and contribute to that quality of life. And in that vein, let me start off by saying, yes, Charlie is a staunch advocate. I meet with him in your legislative committee with some regularity. The NFIB, that represents small businesses in New York State, has endorsed me. I've had the highest ratings of both State Business Council and Unshackled New York, two business organizations, of any state senator. I have a history of working with business. There are a number of issues out there. As New York turns itself around, we're in the process of turning ourselves around. We've learned to work cooperatively and work together. It's about jobs, jobs, jobs. It's about reducing the burden of taxes. It's about getting the monkey of excessive regulation off the backs of business. It's about a property tax cap that we successfully enacted, working cooperatively with the governor. It's about working with state agencies to deliver when you have issues, whether it be DOT, whether it be DEC, whether it be the state health department, or whether it be any number of agencies. This election is about job creation. There are things that we've done, but there's much more to do. Unlike what's going on in Washington, we're not talking past each other, we're working with each other. As recently as this week, I've spoken with the governor about issues that are pertinent to this district. We have to do more. I've worked closely with Dutchess Community College to help secure grants that have trained or retrained somewhere in the area of 7,000 people in this county and Putnam County, over 200 businesses affected. There's more to do, not the least of which is to relieve the burden of unfunded mandates. It's about jobs, it's about economic development, it's about the quality of life for my children, your children, my grandchildren. We've got to make it better than the way we've had it.
Thank you. How about a round of applause for all three candidates? Okay, the first question will be answered by Terry Gipson, and this question will be asked of all three candidates. Terry, what is the focus of your campaign? 2 minutes.
The focus of my campaign is clear. It's reducing the cost of living by changing the way we fund education so that it's fair to students and fair to the property owners. It's about creating jobs in new creative ways here in the Hudson Valley and relying heavily on bringing renewable energy here to the Hudson Valley. We have so much empty office space here in the city of Poughkeepsie, industrial space here throughout this district between Dutchess and Putnam County. It is ready for manufacturing. And if you want to create jobs, you have to bring in manufacturing. And I know that we can do this. The governor wants to do this. I want to work with him in doing this. And I believe heavily in it. It's good for our environment, it's good for our economy, and it's good for our education system, because we will finally have a way to start really inspiring our students to get interested in science and technology. That is critical. That is critical if we are going to compete in the hyper-connected world that we are in today. Education is also at the very top of my list. It's not good enough that we just have quality students graduating from Rhinebeck and Arlington. We need A students graduating from every single school in this district. Our ability to compete in the future is about educating thousands and thousands and thousands of students. We must find a way to make sure that the education you get does not depend on where you were born or where you live. Every student is entitled to a good quality education, and I look forward to making that happen when I get to the New York State Senate.
Steve Saland, what is the focus of your campaign?
At the expense of being redundant, it's about jobs and economic development. And let me suggest to you, as I said earlier, that we're in the process of turning things around. We're working cooperatively in Albany. We've taken the dis out of dysfunction, become very functional. And let me show you some of the results. Standard & Poor's has improved our bond rating. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has rated New York among the top 10 this year for growth, productivity, and livability. So yes, it's an uphill fight, but it's a fight that we are prevailing. It's a fight that we are working to conquer, and we will. It's a matter of getting the private sector stimulated, working with things such as the local regional economic councils, working with our local colleges, working to create public-private partnerships. There's a host of things that we are in the process of attempting to do, and certainly one of them is the complete repeal of the MTA payroll tax. I was instrumental in the repeal that took the payroll tax off 80% of the businesses in the MTA region. I will be instrumental in the resolution. I have 2 proposals that would do away with the current MTA payroll tax, which incidentally was imposed upon us over strenuous objections when we had one-party dominated rule in New York during 2009, 2010, when we saw some $13 to $14 billion in increased taxes and increased spending. That was not my party. It was...
Thank you, Senator Saland. What is the focus of your campaign, Neil DiCarlo?
The focus of my campaign is tell you the truth, but the real focus of my campaign when I go into Albany is to set the Republican conference and caucus straight, because they lied to you. They are bragging about a property tax cap that guarantees a 2% increase. What Republican is in favor of tax increases? My job in Albany, going to them, is telling them why, as a Republican, that you authored a $2.6 billion tax increase. Again, increasing taxes. A friend of mine talked to a local official in this room and asked them, what are you going to do this year? And that local official said, we have a lot of debt, we're going to have to raise taxes. This person was a Republican. What happens in Albany...
Mr. DiCarlo, could you just answer the question?
No, this is my focus of my campaign.
What is the focus of your campaign?
The focus of my campaign...
Not what other people are saying.
Okay.
What is the focus of your campaign?
Respectfully, the focus of my campaign is to let the people in this room and throughout District 41 know that tax increases will not be allowed when I'm up there. Republicans cannot continue to increase taxes, and this is the key. It filters all the way down. What happens in Albany is that if they continue to increase taxes across the board, which they have done in the last 40 years, it gives the excuse at the local level to raise taxes. We cannot do that anymore. If you're on the other side, that's fine, but as a staunch Republican, at no cost do we raise taxes, and we do not do that. So the focus of my campaign is to let everyone know the economic reality here is that we are in trouble. The reason they raised taxes is because they couldn't cut spending. And the rosy outlook by the governor and other people, it's not true. Every single study has said that we are dead last. That has to fix, and under my watch, it will be fixed. God bless you again.
Mr. Saland, what do you plan to accomplish if elected? What are your top 3 priorities?
My top 3 priorities, succinctly, would be jobs, jobs, and jobs. But let me add a couple of things to that. Included among my priorities would be relief from unfunded mandates. Included among my priorities would be to continue the effort to reduce taxes and reduce government spending. Something, incidentally, which we've done in each of the past 2 years. We closed significant deficits without tax increases. We managed to close billions of dollars in deficits. We will continue down that trail. And the interesting thing about it is that we actually reduced taxes on 4.4 million New Yorkers. Brought the rates to the lowest they have been in 58 years. And yes, there were perhaps 16,000 New Yorkers who were earning as much as $1 million filing jointly, singly, $2 million jointly, who are paying less than they were under the prior surcharge, but are still paying additional dollars. But that's 16,000, and 160+ thousand New Yorkers so the tax is reduced. And had we not been able to structure this deal, there would have been no reduction in the MTA payroll tax. So anybody who would have voted against that would have thumbed their nose at business in the Mid-Hudson Valley, because there would have been no payroll tax. That was part and parcel of the deal. We would not have done it without middle-class tax cuts and a payroll, an MTA payroll elimination for small business and individual entrepreneurs. So the world
Thank
is
you,
a little more
Senator
complex
Saland.
than
Thank
some
you.
would have you believe.
Neil DiCarlo, what do you plan to accomplish if elected? What are your top 3 priorities?
My top 3 priorities are truth, truth, and truth. The first thing, again, repetitive. Repeal wholly the MTA. Repeal it wholly, not in parts and part. Simple, little tiny things that they do every couple of years to beg you for your support. You have to repeal it on the first try. Second, it is about jobs, but it's also about economic development and letting the Republican caucus know that increasing taxes isn't the way to economic prosperity. That's the bottom line. Third, to make sure that people can live here. Unfortunately, in the last 10 years, 3.5 million people have fled the state. Second, retirees have left the state in droves and they go down to North Carolina, South Carolina. They're leaving here, they're leaving their families here. Economic reality, folks, here is that when you raise taxes, for whatever excuse, that's a socialist theory. You do not raise taxes as a Republican. You don't do that. So politicians can come up to you and say to you that it's fair share, or make sure that you combine and your income to help others. The bottom line is Republican initiatives are not raising taxes. So my priorities are jobs and making sure that you and your family are not taxed like they've been doing in the last 40 years. We have the highest tax rate in the country. It has to end. And you need someone who's going to go to Albany that's going to say no more taxes. It's not working together. When someone talks about working together, it always takes away from Republican values and Republican initiatives. And what that comes down to, code word, fair share means more money out of your pocket. And that has to stop. Lower regulation and put more money in your pocket, not in their pocket. Lower taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Gipson, what do you plan to accomplish if elected? What are your top 3 priorities?
Well, my top 3 priorities are reducing the cost of living, creating jobs, and improving our education system. I want to talk a little bit more about job creation. You know, something that really bothers me is that so many people in this room right here and walking around out there on the streets of Poughkeepsie and throughout Dutchess County have great ideas about how to start the next business here in Dutchess or Putnam County where they can employ hundreds of local employees. But unless you have really deep pockets, unless you have wealthy investment bankers behind you, there's no way for you to get that idea into the economic stream and get started. So what a lot of you do is you leave the state for states that are more inviting to this idea. Or you just forget about it and give up, and we never benefit from it. I want to keep local ideas locally here in this Senate district so that you can create jobs here and hire local people to work for your company. And again, I'll say the way I want to do that is to create a no-interest loan fund that will allow people with ideas that meet the criteria that we set up to come and get money for no interest to help you pay for your employee's salary for the first 3 years just to help get your company started. No other state does that. It's the kind of creative thinking that we need to help stimulate job growth here in the Hudson Valley. I want to inject creativity into every single level of our government and our education system. And I want to work with you. I want to hear your ideas. Bring your ideas to me. Let's work together to get them done.
Thanks. Neil DiCarlo, what specific proposals can you offer to fully repeal the MTA payroll tax for businesses here in Dutchess County?
Albany is about working together, sitting down across the table like I can, after this is over, and speak to you individually and saying, what has to get done. It's a skill set that if you have a Republican value and you have Republican ideals and you sit down with that person, you explain how the MTA tax is crushing the entire state and how upstate should not subsidize New York City. The question is this: what person has that skill set to sit down and explain to that person economic realities? The bottom line is it has to be wholly repealed. Again, not part and parcel in one shot. And it's sitting down and explaining to everybody, it's a simple fact, get it done. That's how it is. The 2-minute question to answer that, honestly, it's foolish. It's sitting down into a room with stark economic binders, and each assemblyman, senator, and actually the governor, and saying this doesn't work, it's crushing small business, and it's affecting every single person in this state. Eliminate it, wholly. It's not a proposal, it's not a piecemeal, it's going down with a binder and telling them the stark economic realities that it has to end now, not worrying about proposals. End it now. Simply put. That's all.
Terry Gipson, what specific proposals can you offer to fully repeal the MTA payroll tax for businesses in Dutchess County?
Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to get the MTA to get serious about showing us how they spend their money. I am not convinced that the MTA does not have enough money to fully fund the transit system. I want to see proof of how they spend their money. I am certain that if we look closer at their books, we can find ways where there is waste, where we can save, where we do not have to ask that business owners pay for the MTA tax. If we're going to grow business here, we have to find ways to make it more inviting for businesses, and you don't do that by creating taxes for them. It just doesn't work that way. You're going to go to other states where that doesn't happen. And quite frankly, if the state needs more revenue, which clearly they do, I am a firm believer that a more progressive income tax will generate the amount of revenue that we need to pay off all our debts here in New York State. If everyone pays their fair share the way they used to 30 years ago, we wouldn't need all these taxes that we're imposing on business owners. So between examining the MTA's books and a progressive income tax and defending our small businesses and making it easier and easier for them to make a profit, we can improve the economy, and I'm sure that we can eventually quickly resolve the MTA tax. And again, I do want to get you a refund. You deserve it.
Mr. Saland, what specific proposals can you offer to fully repeal the MTA payroll tax for businesses here in Dutchess County?
Let me start off by saying I actually passed a bill when I was a minority member in the Assembly that would have given Dutchess the option of getting out. That was back in the 1980s. The Senate at that time did not take up the bill. The only thing they did the following year was to create the current system, quarter-pound vote, which the counties accepted as a compromise. I wouldn't have accepted it. I would have kept pushing my vote. What we do, I have two proposals. One is based on what the governor proposed and we passed to restructure the New York Racing Authority, NYRA, creating a commission to restructure the MTA. The second one is a bill which basically says to the MTA, you spend too much, you're not accountable, we're going to impose the same 2% cap on you that we have imposed on ourselves, and we have imposed on local governments. If you do that, there will be enough money to phase out over a period of 4 or 5 years the MTA payroll tax in its entirety. There would be enough money to get rid of the motor vehicle fees in its entirety. The MTA's budget, which is collectively somewhere in the area of, I believe, $13.8 billion, is larger than all the municipal governments in New York State, save New York City. The MTA has more employees, more expenses than virtually every authority of consequence in New York State. The simple fact of the matter is they regularly and routinely overestimate expenses, underestimate revenue. They have to be held accountable. My bill, with that 2% cap, will save us enough money. And this is not a state
Thank you, Senator.
It's an MTA.
Thank you, Senator.